Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone listening. You could consider this VORW, though I'm not going to formally say that it is, but it really is VORW, the voice of the report of the week. And this is pretty much a recap of, and my thoughts on, the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead. Now, you may have noticed there weren't any of these for previous Fear the Walking Dead episodes, and I get that. Just was focusing on other things at the time, but tonight I want to talk about the latest episode of Fear the Walking Dead, called Not Fade Away. For those of you who have just found this channel and are just watching this, thank you. You're going to see some pretty weird videos. This guy in a suit watching or reviewing fast food. You'll be scratching your head at that, but nonetheless, I've done a few Walking Dead recaps before. I'm a big fan of The Walking Dead, and I'm a big fan of Fear the Walking Dead, too. So we're just going to talk about this latest episode that aired just a few minutes ago. And I'm going to go through the list of characters, what happens, what I think will happen to these characters, and offer maybe some predictions for the next episode. Alright. Well, society pretty much, at least in the Los Angeles area, has collapsed. As we know it, it's collapsed. Martial law has been declared. There's a few safe zones here and there. And the area in between these safe zones is just a no man's land. The city is probably trashed. I mean, I imagine there's tens of thousands of people still trapped in LA, the city itself, and those big skyscrapers and everything. City's probably trashed. The suburbs, at least the parts that aren't, being kind of governed by the military, just dead. And by dead, I mean non-zombie dead. The military just went by and shot everyone, and we'll get to that later. So, it's not the most exciting episode in the world. You can say not a single zombie was to be seen, except for some dead bodies laying there when Madison went out. Not the most, exciting episode in the world. But it is necessary. And with 2 episodes left, I'm calling this episode The Quiet Before the Storm. Because I formally predict that next episode and the one after that, some real, to be nice about it, some real S is going to go down. And I think this is necessary to kind of lead up to that. I think some real things are going to go down at that point. Anyways, episode begins, with Christopher, or Chris, Travis's son. He's sitting there on top of the roof. He's got his little camera. He's kind of vlogging with probably no internet or audience to be seen. And he's just kind of filming, screwing around with the camera, got nothing better to do. And he sees this light flashing from the little hills ahead, which are supposed to be dead. And this light flashing at him, he doesn't believe what he's seeing. And he kind of flashes back in Morse code, though he obviously doesn't understand Morse. He's just flashing in a pattern, kind of. I imagine they are, too. Trying to communicate. So he knows, my God, there's life out there, He starts going on and on about that, right? Plot continues, things happen, everyone's kind of starting to go a little nuts in their own different ways. We'll get to that when we go through character analysis. Some medical examinations start occurring. Madison leaves the safe zone, only to see some soldiers and some dead bodies, and goes back in. And then some people are taken to the military medical installation. I'm going to have a few words about that. First, however, let's just go through the characters list and let's kind of talk about the characters that are in this show right now, and you'll get to hear Review Bra's thoughts on them all. Alright. Taking it from the top, there's Travis. Travis, he's kind of he's trying to be like the family man, He's the naive believer of authority. And by that I mean, if the military tells him something, he's going to believe it. They say it's going to be alright. He's going to believe it. He's going to believe it, and he's going to try to convince other people that it's going to be alright. You know, he's the kind of guy who will see the guys in their military fatigues, and he'll just look up to them. He'll say, "Yeah, these guys have it all figured out. They're getting things restored. I'll do what they tell me to do." You know, yeah, the leader of them might be a corrupt, power hungry bastard, but they're just doing they're just doing their job. He's that kind of guy. He's naive. He really is. In reality, we all know, the military doesn't have control. Maybe they have minor control right now. Maybe they have a few safe zones here and there. They have their government doctors and their government hospitals. But as things start going really to S, not just in LA, but across the US, as situation starts deteriorating, their supplies have to come from somewhere. Supplies start getting scarce, soldiers start worrying about their families, there's going to be a communication breakdown, there's going to be deserters. People are going to say, I don't want to guard these idiots, I want to be with my family, I want to protect them from the zombies, or the walkers, as Walking Dead lingo says, and so forth. But Travis, he doesn't see that. He thinks, no, these soldiers, they're here to protect us, they're here to restore things back to normal, they're going to get the power grid back up, they're going to get medicine, food, they're going to start taking back the city, things are going to be back to normal in no time. That's what he believes, and I think towards the end of that episode, I think he starts seeing differently. Next there's Christopher. Not the biggest character on the show, if you will. He's kind of like and not to be too political, but he's definitely more of a liberal person, in that when the homeless guy was killed, he was out there in the protest with the other people. He was there filming it and chanting with the other guys. When they tried to drag him away, they were saying, he was there saying, this is big, this is for me. He kind of, events for him are skewed out of proportion. When he was there at that protest, he thought he was part of something big, right? He sees this light. He's sitting there on the top of the, the house, giving this monologue at the beginning of the show. And he sees this light being flashed, at him. He thinks he just saw, he thinks he just saw the greatest thing to ever happen in his life right then and there. He thinks he's like a messenger from the heavens now, that he saw this light flashing at him. That he's got to show everyone that my God, it's a light. There's someone alive out there. Not to forget, probably tens of thousands of people still stranded in LA. But no, this one light. Well, we don't know who that is, but there's a light. So he's kind of got this skewed vision. Doesn't really understand, doesn't really at least look into situations, and uses his head. Then there's Lisa, or Lisa. I say Lisa because there's a Z in that name, who's Travis's ex-wife, and not an actual nurse. She's there. She's going to the medical facility, which we'll talk about later. She wants to help people. She really does. She wants to help people, but at the same time, I think she takes herself a little too seriously. In that, when the other doctor was there eventually, she was kind of getting a little power hungry, if you will. When the doctor was questioning her and talking to her, she seemed a little defensive to me. She seemed a little bit on the defensive. Like, she was saying, well, I'm a nurse if I want to be one. And yeah, she is studying to be one, but she's kind of already taking herself a little too seriously. As if she actually is a doctor of medicine, as one might say, when she's just in nursing school. So yes, she does have medical training, but she's not, formally educated with a degree yet. And never, knowing how things will happen in the zombie apocalypse. Regardless, she wants to help people. Okay, not the worst person in the world. Definitely not the worst, because she does care about people. And she was using what she could to help those people, and she was then helping the government doctor. So she definitely does care. Not the strongest person in the world, not the most likable character, kind of just there, but she helps people. Then we come to a major character in the show, and that's Madison. Alright, that's Travis's present, you could say, girlfriend. I don't think they're married or anything. His present girlfriend. And she's a strong character. Alright, she is. Definitely has a survival instinct. Okay, she definitely knows how to survive in this world. At the same time, though, she's kind of in a state of disbelief, if you will. Because, yes, alright, she has guts. I can't say she has balls, because she doesn't, she's a female. But she has guts, okay? She kind of just wants to do, if you will, the right thing. She kind of wants to be almost like the hero, the savior, you know? In this instance, it was almost an act of stupidity, one might say, in that she kind of went out of the safe zone into this, the DZ, I think they call it, the dead zone, where she was going out to investigate this freaking light. And I just kept saying to myself over and over again, when I saw that scene, why are you doing this? Just why? I understand. You might want to try to help the people with the light. But how do you know what those people are? What if it's a violent street gang, if you will, that, you know, use their weapons to kind of hold themselves up in that building? They're just trying to attract attention. What if they're that? What if it's some insane person? What if it's, you know, violent criminals, you know, rapists, drug lord, you know, you never know. So how do you know that isn't one of those people? How do you know that it's, you know, some good soul who's desperately looking for help? You don't. And there she was, going out to kind of investigate that light. Unarmed. I don't think she grabbed that guy's gun that was laying there. And she goes out only to see all the dead bodies. Alright, now we get it. The military killed the civilians to try to contain it. Sees the dead bodies, then she sees soldiers patrolling the dead zone. And she goes back in. Really, the lesson she learned from her little excursion outside is that the military was killing civilians as well. Not totally proven, but by the guy who was dead with his sidearm. Didn't look like he was bitten at all. But, I mean, you never know. He could have just dropped dead and reanimated and had a gun next to him. So, no way to prove that either way. But she's a strong character, and she tries to control things. She tries to keep things normal, tries to have a sense of control in this out-of-control world. You know, when she was given Nick the beatdown, we'll be talking about him next. A weird thing about her is, again, she wants to kind of get a little sense of control. Kind of try to keep things normal, you know? And that she was there painting that wall over and over again, trying to cover up that blood stain, you know? Trying to keep things normal in a world that will never be the same. That's just one thing about her. Kind of doesn't have a full grasp of reality. It's a pretty sturdy grip on the world right now. But it's not totally there. Then there's Nicholas, or Nick, as they call him. He's not naive. He's not. He knows what's going on. He knows that they're dead. So he's aware of what's going on, but that's about the only good thing about him. I mean, it's the only good thing about him. Other than that, he's a druggie. That's all you can say. He's addicted. He does stupid things when he's addicted. You know, what made me, before I watched this show, he was one of my favorite characters. I kind of liked him. Because his mind, at least, when he wasn't thinking about drugs, was in the right place. But then, he started taking the dying man's morphine. And that made me lose all respect for him. He's just a desperate junkie, trying to get his little fix, not trying to get off. He's just desperate, and then he got hauled off to the camp, the medical center. So, you know, I don't have any respect for him anymore. I don't care what happens to him anymore. I don't like him anymore. I don't. I don't like him anymore. Alicia, that's Madison's, her daughter. Alicia, she's iffy. Okay, obviously, all these characters have a little thing wrong with them now, right? Nick, he's addicted to drugs. Madison still has her grip kind of skewed. Alicia, she just has trouble coping with the whole situation. She's kind of in a state of disbelief that this is actually going on. And that can be present or seen clearly by the fact that she's there, kind of breaking into that woman's house, reading her suicide note, using that needle to cut herself. So she still has like a lost. She can't really. This is her way of kind of coping with how things are. That probably, all her friends from school are dead. Her boyfriend, whose name I forget, he's dead. Probably laying there on the street somewhere, shot by the military. Distant relatives are dead. Her family's falling apart. She's living in a military camp for, God knows how long. She's having trouble just coming to terms with that. And the way she copes is just in that way. At the same time, though, at first I didn't like her, but she's kind of a voice of reason, too, at times. At times, I say. When she kind of was there for, when Nick, after Madison kind of put him in his place, he was just there sulking a bit. And Alicia, she was there for him. Didn't know what he did, obviously, but, she was there for him. She tries to do the right thing sometimes. Tries to be there for her older brother, if you will. Then as I pronounce, the Salazars. Don't know if that's actually correct. Right. I believe there's Daniel. He's if you don't really know who I'm talking about, he's the older, I believe it's Salvadorian. I wouldn't say Mexican. We could say Hispanic. Father who owns a barbershop. He is probably the most likely to survive out of them all, because he knows his stuff, and he's seen some things also in his past. He knows, number one, how to survive. He also knows not to trust the government, not to trust the military. That's a very important quality in this scenario. I'd say if there's someone who's gonna, what I can see happening is he's the most likely to survive. But I can kind of see the writers of Fear the Walking Dead kind of just to get people talking. In one of the next 2 episodes, I could see him dying. Because I know that he's just he's a likable character. A lot of people like him. A lot of people say, this guy, he's badass. He knows his stuff. He can survive. So I could just see them killing him off just to kind of get people going, if you will. Just like how, they killed off Herschel in The Walking Dead and so forth. But he's seen some things in his past. He's dealt with probably civil wars, martial law before. Never zombies, but he still knows how society functions in these times of crisis. So he's seen things. He's kind of already been there, done that. I know what you guys are. Your uniforms are just a facade, and so forth. So he kind of knows already. There's, pardon me if I pronounce the name wrong, there's Griselda, right? She's gonna be dead. No chance of surviving, I imagine. She's going to the government camp to get her foot amputated. Just, next time you'll see her, she's gonna be a walker. That's all I have to say. She's helpless. And then I believe the name is, Ophelia Salazar. That's their daughter. She's, not quite a major character. Definitely she's there. Looks like in the previews for the next episode, she's going to be playing a role. Kind of got a little thing going with the military man, and we'll see where things emerge. We will. With her, not too much is known from her. I can see her getting killed off too. Don't really say too much about her. Don't get to know her too well. Alright. So who knows? Alright. I could see her getting killed off. Tobias. He is not present and accounted for. A shame. A pity. A few other things I want to bring up in this episode. Number one, they were talking about a lack of information. As a major radio enthusiast, it gets me going when they say they don't have any way of finding out information about the outside world. These people obviously live in a world of internet and smartphones, but can't they realize, well, no internet, no telephones, no television. Oh my god, how am I going to find out what's going on in the outside world? Well, what's that thing that's in my car that I listen to on the way to work every morning? Radio? I mean, haven't these people ever even heard of radio? I just don't get it. You don't see people listening to the radio. I mean, I'm sure some have it, at least. Oh yeah, well, you try to listen, but all the FM stations are down. Well, try AM radio. Why don't they just do that if they want to try to get information? Seriously, if they have a handheld AM radio, listen to that. If they're in the car, they could just sit in the car at 3 a.m., turn on the AM radio. If you know a thing or two about radio, you know that the AM signals propagate far, across kind of, depending on power. Some of the big 50 kilowatt stations will propagate across half the U.S. Stations, say in the New York region, WFAN on 660, WCBS 880, or 1010 Winds, these big 50 kilowatt stations, in the dead of night, you'll be able to hear them clear across half the country in a car radio. So, I mean, the U.S. isn't totally dead. I imagine some of those small country towns, even some country cities in the heartland, probably haven't been totally affected yet. So I imagine the power grids are still up in some places. I imagine there's enough power to power some transmitters somewhere. So turn on the car radio in the middle of the night when you'll be able to hear these distant stations and start listening, and you'll be able to hear something for sure. I mean, they're probably close to to Mexico. They might hear a high power Mexican station that might not be in Spanish or in English, but still know that there's other life out there. And then better yet, obviously you wouldn't expect this, but if they had a shortwave radio, done. You'd be able to hear the news from China or South Korea or Australia, or live from the BBC in England or Turkey, or all these countries around the world. You'd be able to hear on shortwave and find out what's going on. But so they're wrong about information or lack thereof. Just use radio, even AM. You'd be able to hear something. There's a lot of AM stations in the country. No way that all those are down already. No way at all. Another thing I want to talk about before I offer predictions for the next show is the medical camp. Alright? I don't think they're going to be treating people there. Or I think it's going to be one of two things. Or three, you can say. Not two, really. Number one, it's a government death camp. Kind of like eugenics, think of it as. The government doctors go into these safe zones. They round up the people who are deemed they're gonna take the community behind. They're not fit for anything. They're crippled, they're disabled, they're addicted to something or other. Not really fit for service, you could say, to rebuild society. So we're going to take them to this camp, tell them that we're there to treat them, and we're going to kill them. We're just going to bring them in, probably sit them down for a little bit, take them out, shoot them in the head, put them into a pile of bodies, and move to the next. So I think it could be like a government death camp. That could be one thing. Number two, the U.S. government might be legitimately trying to help out these people, and they could be like Red Cross facilities. That's possible. And if that's the case, you know what happens to even the government-run hospitals. They get overrun eventually. Too many people coming in with injuries. Too many people turning into walkers. Too little security. Bullets might run out. Staff might just go kind of have a revolt, a mutiny, and just leave. They don't last forever. You need medical supplies. That doesn't last forever. It's all finite. So I don't think those are going to be lasting too long. And I think those people going there, who's getting sent there now? Griselda and Nick, as well as Lisa. She kind of went kind of willingly. There may be a chance, unless, someone goes all superhero and goes to save them. There's a chance you may never be seeing all these characters united again. So just saying that now. Alright, there's a chance, because I don't think that camp is going to be, that medical facility is going to be up for long. That's my belief. Now my predictions for the next episode. I believe it's called Cobalt. I think we're going to start to see the beginning of the end for military rule. I think you're going to start seeing some turmoil, some tensions between the different ranks in the military. I think you're going to see some people deserting. You might see a major character die off next episode. You might see some altercations with zombies. I think you might see some people in the community also kind of starting to take a negative stance towards the government and the military, which are occupying and protecting their town. And people might start realizing, because the military, right now, I think they even believe we're just here on assignment, we're just here on our mission. We're working for the U.S. government to contain this, to protect these people, and, in 6 weeks, I'll be packing up my bags and I'll be able to go back home, in Wisconsin to my wife and kids, and everything's going to be alright. And that's what I think some of them think. They don't realize that, no, life is inexorably changed, and your family's going to be dead, and you're there protecting these strangers. And I don't think they really realize that just yet. Or maybe their families are dead and they just have nothing better to do, so they're just saying, well, at least I'm safe here, and maybe these people won't have to go through what I went through. But I don't think there's too many noble souls like that. Alright. So I think tensions are going to continue to rise, and then the episode after that, the final episode for this season, I think it's going to be the breaking point of everything. I can expect in the final episode of this series probably large-scale conflict between the military, possibly fighting within itself. Probably, I bet you, there's going to be infighting within the military, collapse of ranks and the hierarchy and structure. Might be fighting between the citizens, the community, and the military. And I think also there's going to be fighting between the military and the ever-increasing undead population. And I think martial law and any sort of order is going to come to an end in a very violent and bloody way in the last episode of this Season 1 of Fear the Walking Dead. That's all I have for now. Please leave comments. Give your thoughts on this video and the episode itself. Thank you so much for watching. This was your Fear the Walking Dead recap of episode Not Fade Away, it's called. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Reporter Leak. This is VORW. Leave me your thoughts as always. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.